Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-Tifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Impossible, written by 3DucksInAManSuit. This story is also in 6 parts. This is part 1. For the next 6 days, the next parts will be coming out. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. Planet Sky 7, Exploration Base Number 1, Briefing Room Number 4. All right, everyone calm down and take a recliner. The briefing will now begin. There was a short period of leisurely slithering and a good-natured jostling as the room packed full of heat-loving scadies sunk themselves into the warm gel-like seats. The captain at the podium tested the air. Perhaps the temperature should be turned down a bit. She wouldn't want anyone falling asleep. She hissed sharply, silencing the room and seizing the attention of her crew. We finally have our next mission. The Broodmother has tasked us with the investigation of an unusual phenomenon that has come to her attention. She wants answers, and we have been given the honor of seeking them for her. She paused to ensure that she had everyone's attention before continuing. A star in the third arm of the galaxy started losing light 2 standard years ago. It has grown dimmer by the cycle since that time, and now we can no longer pick it up on our closest instruments. There has been no sign of a supernova or any star-eating stellar phenomenon that explains its disappearance, nor was the star anywhere near its natural expiry. The Broodmother is curious as to why. She has mandated the Zydus to travel to where the star should be and report on what we find there. She brought up the star map for her crew to see. It's going to be a long trip, 180 warp jumps to reach the designated spot. We're leaving the cycle after next, so let's go over some of the logistics. Ship number 3449, designation Zydus. Position Z12253. X55943, Y90038. The data of the past 10 standard years, gathered painstakingly by the Observers Guild, was laid out before Chief Analyst. A unique phenomenon in the vast expanse of space was in itself exceedingly rare. Simple statistics ensured that if it was possible for something to occur once at all, then it would occur many times. There were simply too many stars for one to have something about it that it shared with no other, which made this instance truly fascinating. The rate of dimming had been so gradual at first that it had gone largely unnoticed. The increase had been exponential. 2 standard years for the star to go from normal to totally extinguished. Half of the dimming occurred in the last final month. Chief Analyst had of course checked the position of the observation drone that had recorded this information. It was one of billions of cheaply produced deep space surveillance bots, but even with the sheer quantity of them in the galaxy, it was still 6 light years from the phenomenon. She had to reflect on the fact that although they had only just witnessed the event, in real time the star went fully dark a full 6 standard years ago. There was no known phenomenon that could replicate the disappearance. Curious. The captain's hiss vibrated through the communication system. Time for the next jump. Chief Analyst dutifully strapped herself in. They were almost there, almost to the answers she wanted. She could hardly wait. Ship number 3449, designation Zydus. Position Z17634, X21108, Y84563. Verifying the nearby stars. Standby. Check. Extrapolating stellar cartographic data. Standby. Check. We've arrived, Captain. This is the spot. Captain peered at the instruments on her console, even while she hissed orders to the rest of the ship, dispensing the members of the observers caste they had aboard, issuing guard details from the warrior caste, and designated responsibilities to members of her own leader's caste. Before her were 2 screens of data. One showing the star as it was projected to be, the other showed the actual readings now that they were here. The first screen depicted a perfectly normal, healthy star. There were an estimated 6 planets within the limits of the Brothath temperate zone, according to the astrometric oscillation. Above average, but not unusual. The second screen depicted not that. There were 5 planets. One of them was the most unusual the captain had ever seen. A good proportion of its mass was in near orbit around it. The chunks of rock were freakishly regular in shape and somehow orbited in a multi-tiered pattern that ensured little to no collisions occurred. Scans indicated the orbital mass had the same composition of the planet's surface. It was as if the mass from the irregular world had been deliberately lifted wholesale and put into orbit somehow. The other planets were fairly standard, but the data coming from where the star had been... What is that? There was solid mass surrounding the star. Tiny shards of light shone through gaps in the covering. The only reason they knew the star was actually still there. Something had covered the entire thing like an unimaginably huge blanket. It's like a giant, hollow superplanet. That's no planet, said Chief Analyst, now staring directly out of the main viewpoint of the star, tail rigid with anxiety. That's a space station. Station Prometheus Alpha, in orbit around material world Prometheus, observing the Sagan Dyson sphere around Julena 6. Station Commander Thomas Church was awoken at 4 a.m. Promethean Standard Time by a very excited night shift supervisor leaning on the general alarm and yammering into the comset without even checking to see if his superior was awake. And right now they're bombarding Sagan with some kind of low-power ultraviolet reactive spectrum rays, I think. I mean, that's probably how they see, right? Oh, God. What if they're hostile and I...
Emmett, calm the fuck down and start from the beginning. What's gotten into you, man? This isn't like you at all.
Sorry, sir. There's an unknown vessel in the system. It jumped in via some kind of space warping tech, like the Japanese are developing, you know. And right now, it's just hanging there, just outside of ISIS's orbit.
Japanese design?
Church scrambled to get his uniform on, speaking into the comset as he did so. Not a chance. It's so different from any ship made in Earth shipyards that
What?
Church frowned. Emmett Matthews was one of the most professional station staff he knew. This was so uncharacteristic, it was actually a little spooky. I think it's aliens, sir. I think this might be first contact. Ship number 3449, designation Zydus, position Z17634, X21108, Y84563. There is no mistake, Captain. Chief Analyst had kept her head better than most, mainly because she was too busy frantically going over the new data to waste time on panicking. The megastructure is covering 99% of the star's surface, blocking almost all of its light. Judging from what I can read from the star's output, it seems to be siphoning energy. The energy? How much? Somewhere in the realm of 400 billion petawatts. Someone on the bridge spat out a curse word that was expressly forbidden by the ancient matriarchs, a severely punishable offense any other day. Captain barely noticed. Who needs that much energy? She sounded shrill even to her own ears. That kind of power could destroy planets, could warp space station to another galaxy. New signal registered, Captain. What? There's another structure on the innermost planet, the one with the bizarre orbital rock formations. It's sending us a signal. I think we're being hailed? The captain felt her tongue flicker out of control, a telltale sign of inner discord. To make first contact with an undiscovered species was something she was trained to do as captain of the Explorer caste. But for creatures who could make something like this was uncomfortably significant. These people had built a megastructure, at least 6 or 7 orders of magnitude more massive than the largest recorded construction in space or on world. A structure that harnessed almost the entire energy output of a star. If she slipped up here and induced hostile relations, begin translating signal. Station Prometheus Alpha. In orbit around material world Prometheus. Observing the Sagan Dyson sphere around Julena 6. Mostly ultraviolet in a pattern that repeats regularly, perhaps an attempt to return our greeting. The communications officer, Amy McMahon, was going over the signal produced by the ship with a fine-toothed comb. I've literally no idea how they are producing the signal, but I think it's designed to translate to image. If I run it through a few filters, I might be able to get us a visual.
See what you can do, Matthews. Have we contacted Earth?
Initial message already sent via wormhole. Priority channel with all red flags as you would expect. I expect we'll have a proper diplomats and scientists here within a day or two. The entire team had gathered. The primary control room on Prometheus Alpha was dominated by a holoscreen at the center of the control deck, giving them their first real look at the craft. About 200 meters long and built with distinctive curves, like a tubular cloud moving through space. I think I got it, sir.
Okay. How are you recording this? This moment is probably going to be the most watched moment on YouTube's history pretty soon. Good. Okay. Put the image through. Let's greet our new neighbors.
Ever since the plans for the first Dyson sphere had finally become viable due to exponential replication technology, it had been proposed that if there was intelligent life out there, this was most likely the way to get its attention. Making a star wink out of existence was pretty noticeable. Now that theory had been proven. Commander Church took several deep breaths as he waited for Amy to finish converting the signal to image. Time to make history. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Caspar Arnholtz, Dragzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.